Welcome, everybody, to the Resistance broadcast. I'm John. Thanks for joining us. Monday, January 17th. The Book of Boba Fett is almost halfway over. Unbelievable to really think about it that way. But we are here to talk about everything going on in Star Wars, but also kind of a morphed episode that we've been doing during the run of anytime there's going to be a streaming Star Wars show on. Like the Book of Boba Fett, we're adding some of our Thursday show elements into the Monday show to give you all the TRB you can get. But thank you for joining us, James and Lacey, with me as always. What is going on? How we doing, gang? Happy coldest month ever, at least where I'm at. It's like 7 degrees yesterday. 7.
Yeah, it's actually not too bad where we're at. It's kind of like warm one day and we're like, wow, it's like the middle of January, why is it warm? And then it's freezing like the next day. But we haven't had a lot of snow, so that's different.
We haven't either.
Man, I gotta say though, it's also super cold where I am.
You know, it's funny you say that, because I would think the 20-minute drive would really change the perspective of
it's really weird. It's like we're at the same temperature.
Yeah.
That's wild. I was going to say I'm actually pretty bummed though tonight because I have tried 4 times to actually go to a Taco Bell to get their chicken wings that they have.
Oh, that's the new thing.
It's gone. It's already gone. What? They pulled it nationally like today. So
chicken
I don't know.
wings at Taco Bell?
I would totally try it. I try all the new stuff at all the new places.
I'm the same way, yeah. The guy told me if it makes you feel any better, like it was more about like the experience. And I was like, well, that's what I was doing. I don't really care if they're good or not. I wanted to be able to talk about them or have a say on how they were. But I tried 4 separate times, including like going and they were closed at 6 p.m. Like I've never seen that. I'm like, why are they closed? And then like another time where I found out they only serve them after 2. So me being there at like 1:15, I'm like, well, okay, I guess I can't get them. You know, just
wild.
All these things. Yeah, they were only on the menu for like 5 days. And I'm like...
I found it's difficult to find a good Taco Bell.
The one near me is really good.
That one's all right.
No,
John, and it's only 20 minutes away if you take in consideration the weather.
Right. That's true. That's true.
It's more like 25, to be fair, but
not the way I drive, baby.
Oh my God. Going down the 7 connector at like 80 miles an hour.
Yeah, that's right.
Chalupa!
Yeah. I'm throwing the meat from my tacos at the cop that are like trying to flag me down to like get their windshield covered in beef.
I find that one is a good one because even if they run out of stuff, the manager always gives you coupons for other things.
The one up by me is heinous. I think that's where.
Well, you should come to the one by me then, because the one by me is good.
I'm not down there that often anymore.
It's the same guy every time. It's the same manager guy. I think he's the owner actually, but
I'm not. But I'll tell you this: I'm an outgoing person. I like introducing myself to people, having conversations with people. When it comes to like fast food and stuff, I don't want someone to know me. Be like, hey, John, what's going on? Oh, you went with the number 6 this week? I'm like, I don't want any connection. It's already a guilty thing as it is. I just here's my card. Give me my money. Goodbye. I don't want to bond with my fast food person. I don't
go out enough that someone would know me somewhere, but there is this bagel place in Bethel that the lady knows who I am. And like when she sees me, she knows what my order is, and yet she still messes it up every time.
She's like, oh, that's that lady who likes pretzels. Why is she in the bagel shop right now?
No. I did. I'm not kidding. I just wolfed down a whole bowl of pretzels before this recording.
Oh,
who's surprised?
Matt bought me like the mega pack of pretzels, like from like Target or something, like the mega tub thing. And he walked over to it and went, holy pretzels, the other day, because it was like down to like this much. And he was like, what is happening?
Oh my God.
Anyway.
Well, I hope your stomach's not in knots after we go over all these news stories.
Oh, there it is.
Later. But
kicking it off.
before we
Don't be
get
salty
into
about his jokes.
Oh.
I hate Paul.
See how he twisted that on you?
Yeah.
So before we get into the Resistance report, there had been rumors going around that the Mandalorian was in trouble, that it was being postponed, delayed because of COVID concerns, and we at Star Wars Newsnet were able to really get this confirmed that that is not the case. This was a few days ago now, but it's our new show, and we want to make sure everyone who's listening and maybe not always up to date every day understands that The Mandalorian is A-OK. It is currently filming, and whatever schedule they had set is still on pace. So if they hold court to how The Mandalorian has worked in the past, we can probably, at least logically, speculate that we'll see that show this coming fall returning.
Right.
So hopefully that's the case.
Great news.
Did you guys have any thoughts on that? Was it just one of those like, whew, that's a relief, or just like, I don't care?
I kind of missed the news. I mean, I did miss it. Like, I think I saw it in passing, but I kind of missed the news that like it might be in trouble. So when you hear the news that it's not in trouble, you're kind of like, so what are we doing?
Yeah.
It didn't really affect me because it's kind of like hearing, like a celebrity died, and then like 2 days later it's like, oh, that celebrity didn't die, and you're like, I didn't process it. So
wait,
to
Betty
me,
White,
like nothing happened.
Betty White's still alive? Is that what you're
According to that magazine cover, yes.
saying? Yeah. Right.
Oh my gosh, they jinxed her so hard.
Yeah.
My response is like, I feel like a lot of productions are hitting these kind of COVID moments where they need to stop. I think that's something that we're going to be dealing with, not just in TV, but everywhere for like the next few years, just because of the way it is. And I'm happy that if it was the case that they delayed, it was for safety reasons, because you want everybody to be safe so that the production can go on. But I'm happy to know that that's not the case and they're perfectly fine, because everything we've seen behind the scenes so far, including with the Book of Boba Fett, everyone's wearing masks. The crews are very small. And there's that one shot of the palace in Book of Boba Fett, like his bedroom, where Robert Rodriguez was like legit 15 feet away from where the cast was acting. Like they had a big space between them.
Right. Yeah, he was watching through the monitors. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely just a good news thing. And it's just like, it's the way the construct is for how news on not just Star Wars, but other stuff comes out. It's like, it doesn't necessarily matter how big or how highly trafficked the website or blog is. If they have a moderate social media following, that creates the sort of spider web where this person shares to these two and these two share these two, and then all of a sudden another. It's as soon
some
as the
of them
second
don't even
blog
have a website. It's bizarre. It's like some only post headlines and then be
so
like,
that's
according
the other
to
thing.
blank. Yeah.
So as soon as one of those sites get it, that are just a social media spit out stuff thing, then it takes off and other blogs pick up on it, and all of a sudden it's news.
And then I hear about it
like,
2 weeks later.
And you get things like Stephen Colbert talking about Obi-Wan Kenobi filming in Boston, Massachusetts. That's how insane it gets.
Yeah.
And it turns out not being the case. So in this instance, it's just like, we were able to reach out to certain people and hear certain things back and find out that everything is A-OK. And this is the way. So it's good to hear.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So, James, we have other stories, though, that we're going to get into now in the meat and potatoes that we call Le Resistance Report.
It's the Resistance.
All right, guys. We are in the midst of the Book of Boba Fett, right? At this point, we've already seen 3 episodes out of 7. So we're like right before that tipping point, because next episode will be more than halfway through the series, which is pretty crazy. But we have an episode to look forward to if you're listening to a Star Wars podcast, I should say. We're looking forward to all of them, but it's now been confirmed that Dave Filoni co-wrote Chapter 6 of the Book of Boba Fett. That came from a story from the New York Times, so you can trust it. But the story is from the Direct that points out he's the one doing the Chapter 6, but it started with the New York Times. But anyway, the idea behind this is like, this doesn't necessarily mean he's directing or anything like that, but if you look at what has been announced, Favreau is writing every single one of these episodes, except for this one, which is a co-written episode with Dave Filoni. And so, since our rumors were confirmed that oh, Ahsoka might be showing up in this particular episode because that's the Dave Filoni directed episode, you can probably assume then, and this gets into speculation, we're talking news, but here's a little bit of speculation, that particular episode is probably going to have something to do with Rebels or Clone Wars or something that might kind of need a little bit of his expertise. So maybe that's something to look forward to, maybe not, but you can know that when the credits roll on that particular Wednesday morning, you're going to see Dave Filoni as a writer on that episode. I'm going to start with you, John, on this one. What were your thoughts when this was, I guess, like announced initially and then confirmed?
It just immediately makes, like, I'm all about those patterns, right? So with Mandalorian season 1, you know, he had his 2 episodes, I believe he directed, but he wrote the 5th one, The Gunslinger, where they went back to Tatooine, and that's where we got a lot of that fan service type of stuff, and sort of, you know, beats familiar to things that you would see in the Clone Wars, from that perspective of like Easter eggs and that sort of thing. And people had a mixed reaction to that episode, but I think that was mainly due to like Toro Calican and not necessarily the episode overall. And then you on a more grander scale, you jump to season 2, and he does the Ahsoka episode, The Jedi, and he writes and directs that. And so the writing's kind of on the wall. You're kind of assuming he's a director on this season. There's only 4 episodes left. He's writing one of them. You got to assume that's the one he's directing. It's just a logical assumption. So, and that's what leads people to think like that's the episode where you're gonna get Captain Rex, you're gonna get Cad Bane, you're gonna get all these people coming in here that are
Thrawn, Ahsoka, Sabine,
anyone that Dave Filoni
Kanan,
ever drew a picture of
Ezra
on a piece of paper is gonna be in this episode. So it's gonna be curious to see what happens in that episode, especially it's the penultimate, the one right before the finale, and then you're looking at who's left. So then you have Bryce Dallas Howard still has to direct an episode. Is that going to be this Wednesday? I think maybe. Probably one more from Robert Rodriguez, and then you have Kevin Tancherone is doing an episode, and I could see that being one of those where they just throw that guy at the end for some reason. But I would love to see Bryce Dallas Howard tackle a finale. But either way, I'm putting my
what if Bryce
bets
is
along
getting
with...
a solo cameo?
What do you mean?
What if Solo's showing up in her episode?
She's directing the one where Kira shows up because Solo.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah. But I'm joining pretty much everyone else out there in saying that Filoni's going to be directing that 6th chapter, and I'm curious who comes out of the woodwork because they keep promising all these big surprises, and I'm at the point now where I think Robert Rodriguez may have oversold the hype a bit on big surprises in every episode, because while we've had some, I think the way he hyped it, everyone was expecting big, heavy bombs to drop on every episode.
Well, John, a little spoiler leaked on Star Wars Newsnet that would have been a pretty big thing where a Rancor showed up. Like, if I didn't know that was happening, that would have been a bigger thing. And
our report, whatever we reported, has not occurred yet. So we will see how that transpires. But you're right. Rancor has surfaced. It has increased. We talked about this on the Mando Fan Show. It has increased proving that they are cute. So that was a good thing. But we won't get into that now. But that's my takes on it. Not much else really until we see it happen and we can really give our feedback on it. But in terms of speculating, I think he's directing that chapter, and I think we're going to get some cameos.
Mm-hmm. Lacey, thoughts on Dave Filoni co-writing Chapter 6?
It's not surprising. I mean, him and Jon Favreau are like buddies at this point, like best buds. You know that song, like, let me tell you a story about, like, I see them like running around, giggling like Step
the
Brothers.
Robin Big theme song?
Yeah, like the Step Brothers moment where they're like, you want to do karate in the garage? Like, that's what I think of Favreau and Filoni just having a great time with Star Wars. That being said, with Mandalorian season 1, when he directed the episode where Boba Fett and Fennec Shand show up, it would make sense that he would then continue their story in the next season. And I think he's been kind of the inspiration behind a lot of these deep cuts that Jon Favreau might not get immediately. He'll get a lot of them, but not maybe everything. Or he might not even consider, hey, how about this tie-in? Or is this possible? Whereas Filoni's kind of that person to help him along, I would imagine. not with the creative part, more with like the actual continuity of what works in Star Wars and the storyline. So, I mean, it's not surprising that he's writing this episode. I think it's pretty obvious that that means that someone's going to show up that is from his story, like Cad Bane, which I think all of us were pretty like, okay, that's a very straightforward cameo / appearance of a character that makes complete sense in the storyline of Boba Fett. Like, it's no surprise if he does show up, but it's still a surprise in the sense of seeing him in live action, I think, is where the surprise is.
Yeah.
That being said, I really, really love hearing Filoni talk about the episodes. So part of me is excited for him to write an episode and direct an episode because I want to hear him talk about it later. And I don't know if that's kind of lame, but I really enjoy like the conversations in gallery about the process and how they got there and why they made certain decisions. I just find it super interesting. So the idea that we might get a clip or interview with Dave Filoni later about why he made these choices gets me super excited, more than actually the episode where the people show up. But yeah. I think it's
I mean, I can't really add a whole lot that we haven't already said because you guys know I already have the same opinion. I'm excited to see
Who do you want to see most, James?
As far as a cameo?
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing is like, what do I think if there was a big cameo to show up in that episode? I think it's probably Cad Bane because that would make the most sense.
Right.
I have to always fall on my mathematical thing of like, there probably won't be a big reveal. And then if there is, then I'm like excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, I was wrong. This is great. You know?
Right.
Kind of thing, like lowering the expectations of it. But I think like what would give me the biggest surprise? There's tons of characters. I mean, like, you can almost like.
I'm saying which one would you like the most? Not like what would surprise you. Which one would you want the most?
Well, I think that's kind of like the same thing. Like in the sense of like if Cad Bane showed up, I'd be surprised. But like for instance, like if Omega showed up, I'd probably be.
I was hoping you'd bring her up.
More. Surprised that they're going that route, and therefore be like, "What? This is nuts!" I'm excited because I know this character and stuff. So like there's certain things that I'm sure specific characters showing up can break your expectations because Cad Bane is almost falling into a category where like nobody's really expecting him.
Too obvious,
but, like,
you're saying?
You can kind of expect him, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like when they really go left field and pull someone out of nowhere that is really cool and a good pick and wow, I can't believe that character's live action now. I think that's where you can really get the excitement level, and people are going to be tweeting about that. They're going to be tweeting about Cad Bane, but you know.
I know Omega would be wild. Oh my gosh, that would be wild.
Yeah, well, I don't know how they would do it.
I would want to see that to ask my brother, be like, "What'd you think about that?" He'd be like, "Yeah, who was that curly-haired woman who showed up? No idea."
Well, she might have a different haircut by the time she grows up.
Yeah, any new character in this show?
No, but I mean, like, in other words, we'll be like, oh my God. And then they'll be like, who's that?
Yeah.
I think you're getting a lot of this in Book of Boba Fett in general, which is what I think relates to our next story of why maybe that's the case with why it's not doing as well as The Mandalorian.
So, James, what like Boba Fett walks into this building and he's looking for something, he's tracking something, and there's this little pod and it opens up. And it's just this baby Duros. And it's just like this baby Cad Bane. And they touch fingers.
Baby Bane.
Baby Bane. With a little hat.
God.
His little tiny hat.
Yeah.
It's not even a full size. It's like one of those little ones you put on cats.
Yeah, it's like Woody from Toy Story's hat on little baby Bane. And then they touch fingers. And then it's because Cad Bane was cloned and Cad Bane died. And he's like, I really loved Boba Fett, and I want him to raise my clone.
And then it just cuts to the logo. Dun 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 dun. Woo! Dun 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 dun. I love that song, by the way. I listen to it all the time.
I like it when it gets to the very end of the credits, and you know, like it's time to shut it off. When it's like the deep voices, like the you're like, oh, okay. I've been watching this too. I've watched it too far.
James hates that song so much. You just bring it up,
don't.
James.
No, I don't. You know what the funny thing about that song is, and I'll just say it really quick, is the longer I go with it, the more I'm realizing that it fits in the show oftentimes because they're doing the thing where they like pull the voices out and it's mostly just strings and stuff. So you're hearing the theme of the show, but when they like hit you in the face with it, it's supposed to have that effect of like, this is the actual song kind of thing and not just like tones of it. The tones work. And I think I said this like on Mando
You just said it was
Fan Show,
overmixed,
episode
I think
1.
is what you said, right? Too much. It's got too much in it.
No, I think what I was saying was it was just very obvious to me that it was like, 5 people and then they just like duplicated.
Oh, that's what it was. See, I don't know that on a level of like being musically talented. So I just heard like, there's just a lot. And I'm like, I mean, yeah.
I mean, this isn't the place for Mando Fan Show, but like his particular stuff, I'm critical in the sense of like, it sounds like it's from a studio.
That's
and
what
I know
you said,
that
from a studio.
Yeah, there's been cases where like they've shown him like, with a studio and stuff, like, or in a like a live recording environment and stuff. And I'm like, something still doesn't feel right though. It feels like it's like written for a computer and then like they're translating it or something.
Well, he did it from his couch. Yeah.
Yeah, something. And I get the same vibe from all of the like Rebels, Clone Wars, Forces of Destiny, all that stuff. It all sounds computer based, like wave sample based, and not like movie live.
They're not writing on paper with a feather pen like John Williams is.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know.
James,
but
before we move on, one thing to keep an eye on is Tamara Morrison and the New York Times both tabbed Jon Favreau as one of the directors for the season, but that Disney Plus thing leaves him off. So it's either he is doing it and Robert Rodriguez is doing one less or something like that. Because I don't think they would have these other names. Like, I don't think they'd have Bryce Dallas Howard and that other guy on here and them not direct. So I think it'd be either Jon Favreau is directing one and Robert Rodriguez is doing one less, or Robert Rodriguez is doing one more episode.
They could have switched too. Maybe at last minute they were like, hey, can you direct instead of me?
He's like, Robert, go run the food truck. I got this episode.
No, maybe Robert got busy and had to do something else. Like, didn't he just do something like Billie Eilish or something? Didn't he do her concert special or something?
Don't know.
I'm pretty sure he did on Disney Plus. But anyway, so like something could have come up where he's like, hey, Dave, can you grab this?
Alita Battle Eilish.
Oh my gosh. No.
Anyway,
speaking of not popular.
Yeah. Our next story being Lacey brought this up a few minutes ago that technically, like if you look at the numbers here, at a very specific window, like 11 days after The Mandalorian premiered, it's now been 11 days or, 11 days since the Book of Boba Fett premiered kind of thing. Comparatively, Book of Boba Fett is not doing as well as The Mandalorian. There's other little factors into this. We can get into those details if we want to, but it was quite an interesting article. And so I'm going to start with Lacey on this one. But also, side note, there's more to this story too. We can get into that later if we want to, but I didn't really think it was like too big of a deal because we kind of already know some of that stuff.
Right.
But what were your thoughts on, the Book of Boba Fett not performing as well yet, like currently?
I'm not surprised at all, actually, because first of all, when you look at Disney Plus, The Mandalorian, like it said in this article, was on there for like a year and a half without any competition. Now you've got everything going on there during COVID, which wasn't a thing when The Mandalorian came out, by the way. You have people streaming all the time, so they have all this content coming out, including all these Marvel shows. There's just so much stuff to watch that it doesn't have the same pull that The Mandalorian had in the sense of, oh, this is the original Star Wars stuff that's going on before all the Marvel things. That being said, just looking at the characters alone, I feel like, and I fall into this category a little bit, not because I don't know who Boba Fett is, because I did going into this, but I feel like I have more of a connection with The Mandalorian than I do with Boba Fett, even though I grew up on the original trilogy, because I feel like The Mandalorian was something that I appreciated older, when I was like more into the fandom than I was when I was little. And then not only that, I got to be a part of that journey as it was happening. Whereas not Book of Boba Fett, but Boba Fett, I was looking back at something that had already happened. The movies had already come out. People had time to sit with it before I even got to it. I feel like with The Mandalorian, you have a lot of people, and John kind of brought this up with his brother, because I feel like my sister and a lot of my friends fall into the category is they got interested in The Mandalorian because it was the first thing of its kind of a Star Wars series. And then Baby Yoda, Grogu hooked them and they were in, because it was every week, what cute, adorable thing is Grogu going to do on screen? And it kind of just took over. And I mean, everyone knows who Baby Yoda is. They still don't call him Grogu, but everyone knows who Baby Yoda is. And it's because this was such a phenomenon. I don't think Disney expected it to be this crazy. So no matter what came next, I don't think it was going to be as crazy as The Mandalorian, at least until Obi-Wan Kenobi, because everybody loves Obi-Wan Kenobi. I feel like Boba Fett is one of those characters that, yes, there are tons of people that love that character, but they fall into this subgroup, whereas Obi-Wan, I feel like, is a pretty common character that if you ask people who their favorite character is or top 3 characters,
Obi-Wan's going to blow the numbers out of the water.
Yeah, so I think the hype for that is a little different because of the level of popularity of the character. And I think going back to what John said earlier, there's a lot of things in the series that we get as diehard Star Wars fans that other people don't get. And I think it falls into that kind of conversation we've had before on Resistance Broadcast, which is it's hard to keep track of the timelines. Where does this fall? Where's Boba Fett now? Like, where's Jabba the Hutt? Does this happen before? Does it happen after? Like, who are these characters? And yeah, it's not about introducing new characters, like you said, James, which I don't think is that hard to understand. I think it's the mixture of these old characters that everybody somewhat knows who they are with these new ones that's getting confusing of like, where does this fall? But we'll see how it goes. I think there's a lot going on. This premiered during holiday time, which is all a busy time, especially right now when people are trying to get back to their normal lives after COVID, where I feel like in the past year it might have been a little different, but at the same time, Star Wars movies have come out at holiday time and they've always done great. So it's here nor there. But yeah, I think that's what it is. I think it's honestly, it's like people just aren't into it as much as they are into The Mandalorian.
John, what are your thoughts on these statistics?
I think it's the element of the first, and if Boba Fett happened to be the first live action Disney Plus show, literally the first live action Disney Plus show, it debuted the day the service launched, it probably gets better numbers than it did. So The Mandalorian benefited from that. It was part of the overall Disney marketing hype package of day one, brand new Star Wars is coming, and it's on this platform. So people are like, I just got this. I got it as a gift. This new Disney Plus thing. I'm going to watch this, the new stuff. I'm going to watch that. So I benefited from that. And then you have the Grogu factor at the end of that episode, which transcended Star Wars. Grogu became a household name across everywhere. Even people who don't necessarily love Star Wars who are like hitting me up like, oh my God, I'm watching this show because of this little Yoda thing. And so you have chapter 1, which benefited from being the very first, the new thing. Everyone's tuning in to check it out because it's the hot thing going on Disney Plus and it's Star Wars. And then chapter 2 benefited because of the end of chapter 1. So, and this comparison was all based on Mandalorian's first 2 chapters and Boba Fett's first 2 chapters. So I think it's unfair to Boba Fett to make the comparison. I understand why they're doing it because, it's just part of how it goes with comparing things. But I think if it was flipped, at least the very first episode of Boba Fett, if it debuted on November 12th, 2019, it would have gotten very similar numbers to what The Mandalorian did. So I think it went by the first. And I agree with Lacey. I think Obi-Wan's going to blow them both out of the water in terms of numbers, just because he's a main character, he's a legacy character, and people. I think Obi-Wan's going to beat
all their records for.
Oh yeah, I think it's going to be huge. Yeah. So, in the end, this doesn't really matter much because, as they say, even though it's not in the headline, Book of Boba Fett still is in like the top, 0.05% of desired and watched streaming things. I'm still not positive that even this site Parrot or whatever knows how to fully calculate all of this and what it all means, but they do the best they can to give you the version of box office for streaming. So
especially because a lot of these services keep their numbers, they keep their stats themselves. Like Netflix is very close with their stats.
Right. So in the end, it doesn't matter all that much. And then, like you said, James, there is other stuff in this story. I don't know if you wanted to kind of touch on that, but a lot of it seems sort of similar to stuff we had already heard about. They got more shows coming, and they say 12, but I don't think that was much different than what we had heard previously.
Mm-hmm. One other thing too is, John, you said they were comparing the first 2 of every, but wasn't it the first 11 days after?
Oh, maybe, but I think that falls. They wanted to do whatever was out for Book of Boba Fett and what the same amount would have been for The Mandalorian. So I think, 11 days, but that was still 2 episodes or whatever, I believe.
Because Mandalorian season 1 dropped an episode, I believe, on Wednesday, and then another on Friday, and the next one didn't come out to the Friday after, which would be 3 episodes in 11 days.
True. But I think I
don't know how they calculated, because I thought they calculated based on the first 11 days after the premiere of said show for season 1,
maybe.
season 2, and season 3. So in that season 1, they would have had 3 episodes at that point, and episode 3 got a lot of praise too. I don't know if that throws off what we're talking about here, but because I agree with everything you guys are saying as far as like, oh man, The Last Jedi didn't do as good as Force Awakens. Duh. Like, there's so many other factors. And, with most movies, I think people say, well, usually you have like a good one, but if that movie's really good, then a lot of people fly out to see that second one. And it doesn't matter if the second one's good or not. It is on the heels of the previous, whether the first one was good or not. So you would have thought that Last Jedi would have been high numbers, but it's like, no, like some things don't follow those rules. And Star Wars, and in particular, this example of The Mandalorian coming out when Disney Plus came out, it's like that's wrapped up in all the hype behind Disney Plus. You know what I mean? Well, I'm sure Sleeping Beauty had high numbers that day too, because people watched things just because they could. Like all of a sudden they're like, I own all these movies, Fox and the Hound, here we go. Right. And it's like those numbers probably dropped right after that, and it doesn't say anything about that particular program as much as it does about people just wanting access to all this stuff, especially this new content from high priority properties like this, so
and all things said, Boba Fett, it says the Book of Boba Fett is still in the top 0.2% of all shows according to analytics. So
so it's one of those things. It's one of those things, like you could say like Elon Musk lost $600 million yesterday, and you're like,
you can spin it
he's
however
done.
you want.
You know what I mean? It's like, but that's like 1% of his wealth or something. It's like really doesn't mean anything. I
don't like giving attention to people who spin things for the sake of being negative. I think that's weird. But there's people out there saying Book of Boba Fett, huge fall off from The Mandalorian. But if you look at it logically, I think we broke it down pretty well.
One other thing that we wanted to talk about here, because this is a story that's been ongoing for a long time. We've seen it kind of here and there and this, and everybody's saying confirmed, and it's like, yeah, that's kind of confirmed, but it seems to still be getting lost kind of in the mix. And this is, I think, we kind of got, it's still not, but it's the most straightforward answer, and it came right from Tamara Morrison himself, is that Disney is making a true attempt to kind of cover up, not necessarily change the name of, but kind of swipe it under the rug, kind of thing, of Slave One and now being called Fire Spray. This came from an interview where somebody kind of asked them directly, what's the deal with this name change thing? And he says, oh, I believe Fire Spray. I believe we very much call it Fire Spray in the show. And, didn't seem to pay any mind to, the previous title of this ship. And it's been back and forth with fans, like whether this is like a big deal or not. I don't know, but I thought I'd just throw it to you guys to see what you had to say. John, I guess I'll start with you, since you're the one who's kind of been reporting this as far, you know what I mean, as far as Star Wars Newsnet goes, or having to make the call on some of these stories.
Yeah, it's weird because, you know, Slave One's never mentioned, at least in the movies. Maybe it was mentioned in Clone Wars. I'm not positive. But I know it wasn't mentioned in the prequels, nor was it mentioned in the original trilogy. To me, it's not a big deal to make the change for that reason. It is strange that it's the model of the ship, but they're calling it that, and they're adding gunship to it or whatever. I don't think that they needed to change it. I think that was maybe a little overreactionary in my opinion, because like in Episode 1, they literally are calling people slaves. Anakin and Shmi, are they going to edit that out? Are they going to change that? You know, so, you know, you're no longer a slave. Or we were sold to Gardula the Hutt, and blah, blah. You know, Princess Leia was Jabba's slave. So I don't know where's the line. You're changing the name of a ship that's never been referenced in the movies, but you have people calling each other slaves and stuff like that in an actual George Lucas Star Wars movie. So it just seems like something that might be a little bit of an overreaction to some backlash. But at the same time, you know, that's why I'm glad we have a podcast, because you can express nuance with these things. I couldn't care less if it was what it's called. So if Boba Fett wants to change his name because it's his now, or whatever, however they want to do it, I really don't care. I was never even a big fan of the ship. It's kind of a weird looking ship. And I'm all about, I'm a Han Solo guy. So I'm not going to be a Boba Fett guy when it comes to ship versus ship. So ultimately, I don't care. If they want to change it, cool with me. I don't think people should overreact that majorly to it. And at the same time, as I call it almost like an overreaction to change it, I think people who are upset about it are probably overreacting as well, because I don't think they care as much as they think they do.
Lacey, thoughts on the name change, I guess we could say?
Yeah, I don't really care what they call the ship. You know, that's not my choice or my decision on any of these story or character ship name choices that are being made. Like, okay, cool. As for the name change itself, I honestly don't think it's changing because of why people think it's changing. Like, people are saying, oh, it's changing because slave is a bad word and they don't want to call it that. I think that the story isn't that. I think the story is that, as we're seeing in the Book of Boba Fett is changing as a person, and he's no longer a bounty hunter. He doesn't want to be known as a bounty hunter. He doesn't want to be tied to that life anymore. So I feel like he's going to change the name of his ship because of that. And I feel like people are reacting like crazy, being like, why would you change this? How could you, you know? And I think I saw people throwing around like, oh my God, so woke to change this. I don't think that's what it is. I literally think that it's because the character is changing, so he doesn't want that tied to the old life that his father led and he led. Now that we've seen him go through all these changes where he's showing, you know, care for other people, and he's going out of his way to help others and not be a crime lord type thing, be more of like, I guess that's not the right word. He's trying to not be a dictator. He's trying to be more of a ruler with respect, you know, we'll throw that James' favorite line.
What's that from?
So I just feel like that's what the name changes. And I would bet that's what it is. And it just leaked early and people are just assuming things like, oh, how dare they change the name? And I don't think it is what they think it is. I think it's literally
that's
because...
interesting.
Yeah, you know, because look at the story as a whole, you see that he's
it's definitely a good way to sell it, at least to the angry people.
And
anyway.
Hey, maybe there is a behind the scenes thing of, hey, we don't like this name anymore, and that might be the case. But I feel like this is how it's going to be.
Yeah, because they changed the Leia thing is different now too. It's not Leia.
It's a Hutt Slayer.
The Hutt Slayer,
No.
or Jabba's. She's Jabba's prisoner. She's not slave Leia or whatever.
Yeah, the Hutt Slayer is not what we're talking about here. Hutt
She's
Slayer
called Jabba's prisoner now. Yeah.
Was a nickname they gave her because she murdered.
I think it's a conscious change, but
No,
I agree, Lacey. They are going to
hold on. The toy has Hutt Slayer on it.
No, I doubt it.
Google it, James. I'm pretty sure the Hasbro toy has the newest version.
We got a bet.
The newest version has Hutt Slayer on it. That's where that came from.
I mean, it comes from the book, It comes from one of the books, and it was a name that was going around. People were calling her that because there was a hologram that was leaked of her killing Jabba the Hutt. I'd be surprised that they'd replace the name with that to describe her outfit.
On the toy. Yep. Guys,
did you find it?
We're now in a bet.
No, we're not in a bet. I'm just saying I think if they did it, I would be surprised. I was like, I don't see where that would come in as a connection. Like,
because I think they stopped calling her Slave Leia. People didn't like that, so they changed the name on the toy,
right.
and then they
that was
re-released.
my point. Yeah.
Yep, and then they re-released the toy as Hutt Slayer, Leia Hutt Slayer.
I remember they changed the name on the toy, but I would be surprised if that was the name they switched.
We will find out.
Well, either way, it's fine.
Go ahead, give your thoughts, James.
So my thing is with John, I'm kind of in between where you guys are saying, I think a little bit, because specifically with what John was saying, and you too, Lacey, a little bit as far as I don't really care that they changed the name. Like, I kind of do care that they changed the name, because I think people would care if they changed the name of like the Millennium Falcon.
Oh,
like,
sure.
if all of a sudden they're like, oh, we're calling it Han's spaceship.
Yeah,
you know,
you're right.
From now on, we're going to call it the YT 1300 freighter on all official marketing or something, and people be like, that's not the name of the ship, and you're doing something very specific to try to avoid this somehow. Like, it feels weird that you're trying to do this. That being said, I understand that they might be trying to get away from that particular word, but I'm more on the side of you, Lacey. You put it just a little bit different than what I was going to say, but it's kind of the same idea.
Yeah.
I think Disney was trying to market Boba Fett as more of a hero in this particular show, and they don't think heroes should have ships that promote the concept of enslaving people. Like, heroes don't call their ships, their slaves, kind of a thing. And so they were like, well, maybe we could kind of play it off like he used to be like that kind of thing. But if you're trying to say like that all of this was set up because they had to change the name, I think that's really crazy, because then you're basically writing the entire story of Book of Boba Fett to erase this name. I think it very much fit in what you're saying with the way they were going about the show, and then someone point out, hey, would he still want to call his ship Grand Murderer? And it's like, it's not like we have a problem with murder in Star Wars. It's not like we have a problem with slaves. Like, people can be slaves, but this ship is christened such because he's promoting the idea of like, I take slaves, or this ship is my slave, or something, something along those lines. We don't want that personality trait or characteristic of this character, because we're getting ready to make him a big, profitable hero type. Maybe anti-hero, but hero type, our lead character. Yeah, which is honestly dumb. No, I'm just kidding.
Every time we talk about Boba Fett as a hero, we should play the theme.
Yeah, no. No, I mean, it's fine, and I think you guys are right that this is all sort of one thing that was like, we saw it on the box and we're like, what does this mean? What the heck? And then as it kind of comes a little bit more clear what they're doing with Boba Fett in this particular show, it goes, all right, that kind of makes sense. They're changing the name, and we were kind of hearing about it before we really saw the goal. So we kind of are maybe jumping to conclusions as fans. And they might even say that in the show. Who knows? Somebody be like, are we going to get on Slave 1? And they're like, I'm not calling it that anymore, or something like that. Like, they might still quote it or say it by name, but probably not.
Slave 1 just speaks, and he's like, that name no longer has any meaning for me.
Yeah, it's actually L3 somehow.
No, James, you're right, and I want to make it clear that I'm not downplaying at all people that do care. That, hey, this is my childhood, I don't want it changed. Yeah. I'm just saying, personally, I don't care either way, but that's because I don't necessarily care about this ship. You make a good point, James, that if it was something I cared about, I'd probably have a different attitude.
And
yeah,
you know what?
I think there's definitely other ships and other things like that we probably just don't even think about.
Right.
That we would care if they changed the name of. But then there's like other things that mean that have other connections with other fans that if they change the name about, we might be easy to be like, well, who cares? It's like, well,
well, if it's
like
they
the
don't care about
not
a
this
Rancor
name
anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, or something like that.
And it's like, people who are like us who are podcasting every week about Star Wars, and people who are listening to this podcast are obviously diehard Star Wars fans, so they knew the name. But I'd imagine over 90% of people who like Star Wars and fill the box office and stuff have no idea what that ship is called before. So.
I disagree. Especially on your over under being 90%. I think you guys sometimes
83.
underestimate how big of a character Boba Fett was. Just
hey, I didn't say that. John said that.
No. I'm
Boba
saying
Fett,
both of you.
yeah,
I think
ship,
sometimes. Though. Yeah. I think like I mean, even when you guys were talking about Obi-Wan and stuff, I'm like, he's a very popular character, but I think that Obi-Wan came into popularity because of the prequels. So if you go and talk to like OG fans, people who like were really into Star Wars in the 70s and 80s when they were kids and stuff, and then they never really got into the prequels, I think Boba Fett might even be more popular of a character than Alec Guinness's Obi-Wan, because people just like, I loved him, I played with his toys, I wanted the Slave One for Christmas, and like nobody was wanting old Alec Guinness Obi-Wan. Like, it's kind of.
Did it have a name back then though?
Oh yeah. I think it's
whenever the first toy of it came out.
Yeah. So I mean, it's always been this name, and it's only now recently that they're kind of it's seemingly like they're going out of their way to call it something different, and that's what's got fans being like, why don't you just keep it the same thing? But I think our reasons here are good ones, like legitimate, and not like, oh crap, what are we gonna do? Well, we'll make up a story that he like changed his ways or something,
Mm-hmm.
I think that is kind of the goal, and probably the reason or origin of why the name change is happening, as opposed to what you were saying, Lacey, where it's like, we have to change this name. All right, let's come up with reasons. Let's have a get together and we all can think about possibilities of why we can call this something different now. That I think is pretty much the mainstay news for this week. But there were a couple other things we wanted to mention. And one of those is that the game Fallen Order 2 might not be called Fallen Order 2. It looks like they might, and this isn't crazy when you hear it, they're going to stick to the Jedi : new subtitle naming convention, and that makes a lot of sense. We haven't heard much about it. I know that, certain people who are involved with the game are saying like, are you doing it? Are you involved? And they're like, I can't say anything. So, it's happening. It's gonna, we're going to see some news. The newest reports as of now is that we had heard that it was going to be at EA's event, EA Play, but just shortly before that is going to be Celebration. And now the new rumor is our first look is going to be at Celebration. But this game has been pushed around and kind of hidden. It's flying under the radar right now because it was supposed to come out August of 2022, and you're probably not getting it this year. But they are still working on it. It's still coming. So get excited for when it does. We get our first footage, hopefully at Celebration, for Jedi : whatever they want to call it. The other thing, too, is that there was this thing, and I'm sure you guys all probably saw it. It was for a charity. I don't want to say charity. It's more like an educational program that's going to be pushed by the Force for Change movement. But this one works for the First brand. And it's a new initiative called Build the Future. And it's a lot of STEM related things and stuff like that, and it all has to. Lucasfilm is involved with making it happen, and I think one of the cool things that Star Wars fans took out of this promotion is Hayden Christensen showing up to promote it. There were a couple other Star Wars names in the video, which was always good to see those people still involved, in Star Wars. Like Kelly Marie Tran, for instance, she was promoting this. So she
I was very surprised to see her in it. I'm not gonna lie.
I was more surprised by Hayden, and I think the reason that is because it's his first like real official
public appearance, and
like, hey, I'm in Star Wars. This is me. We've seen his picture and stuff, but he hasn't actually like said anything or walked out anywhere. My son's here. So I think that is the exciting thing for that particular promotion. And let me wrap up Resistance Report for a second so we can move on to the next section.
All right, guys, it is time for the Patreon Podrace. So as you guys know, there are lots of ways you can support us. You can like this video, comment, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications here on YouTube. You can follow us on all the different audio apps, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you do follow us there, please leave a review. It helps us out and lets people see what our show's all about. You can follow us on Twitter at RBATSWNN or on Instagram at The Resistance Broadcast. If you want more than that, including exclusive episodes, mailings, Discord servers, and much more, including live streams, you can head over to patreon.com/resistance broadcast. And more than just the bonus stuff, which is great, you know, we put a lot of work into that. You're just saying that you support us, that you like what we're doing here. You like what we're going to be doing this year, which is potentially the biggest year in Star Wars. And you get to support us starting at $2 a month. You can support us.
Someone literally just joined. Not joking.
Correct. It's working. It's working.
No, it wasn't Bennett.
But yeah, so you're supporting what we're doing here, and just with $2 a month, you're saying, hey, I support what you're doing. I want to see what comes from this, and you let us talk about Star Wars, which is awesome. So this is the part of the show where we let people take part, which would be our top tiers, our generals, and our spice runners. So first, I want to thank those people. So thank you to our generals: Carmelo, Andrew Staley, Jeremy Myers, John Reese, Jetta Rosewater, Paul Olson, Oliver Lewis, Frank Grande, Joe Ritchie, Darth Hurricane, John Chorlton, Nick Kratz, Christian Morales, Brian Smith, Matt Chitty, Nathan Shank, Danny, and Val Trichkoff. Thank you guys so much, generals. Then we have our spice runners: David Probus, Neil Shaw, Double C Chris, Kendall Gellner, Ryan Wara, Dave Hornack, Micah Harrison, and Thomas Hennessy. Thank you guys so much for keeping it spicy. This week we have General Darth Hurricane, aka
Michael,
yes. Sorry. Someone just dropped something in my hallway. I just got so distracted.
We're getting bombarded left and right, guys.
Johnny's upstairs crying like, this is podcast life, baby.
Someone just dropped something. I was like, AK Matt dropped something in the hallway, and I was like, what is happening? Anyway, so this past week, we asked him, if you could design a Star Wars theme park ride, what would you create? What kind of ride would it be? And what would the attraction look like? And what would you call it? So, Darth Hurricane, take it away.
Hey TRB, it's Darth Hurricane here. If I could design a Star Wars a theme park ride, it would definitely have to be a Star Wars pod race. I'm envisioning 12 separate tracks, sort of like roller coasters, with enclosed pods that you would be able to control. They'd be virtual screens inside, sort of like the volume. They'd move in any direction, spin, upside down, whatever you were doing in the race. And you'd actually be racing against the other individuals that are going at the same time. The key would be going above the Disney park. So it would start at one place and go all the way around. People underneath would just be walking underneath you, and you'd come back around to where it started. And the other aspect is you would be able to gamble for credits in the gift shops by betting on other racers while you're waiting in line, and even your own race if you wanted to. So definitely be called the Star Wars Pod Race, and it would be expensive, but it's Disney, so we know they can afford it. See you guys.
Great job. This is a great question, John. I really, really enjoyed this question. I think we've asked something similar to this before, or maybe they've asked us this question. I just really love it, especially because we just did the Star Wars night tickets, which we're all going, hooray. So I'm in kind of that excitement Disney mode right now this past week. So John, what did you think of his answer?
I loved it just because I love those immersive type rides that it's almost like he set it up almost like in a VR situation, because he's saying he wants you surrounded inside the pod all by LED screens, so that if you look to your left, you're like seeing who you're racing against. But the only thing where Mitch made me a little nervous is he said it's going to be above like the Star Wars land. and I'm afraid of heights. So even though I'll be like not understanding how high I am, that makes me a little skittish. But he put it like so like he should be designing like coming up with ideas for these rides.
He should
like,
be an
this sounds like
Imagineer.
yeah, I want to go on this ride. And the fact that the coolest part is beautiful, because you know how long these lines can be sometimes when you don't have the magic wand or whatever they do now. You can bet for credits on the races. That's very Star Wars. You feel like a little bit of get in the action with Watto a little bit while you're waiting for your turn, and you could bet on your own race. Then you could like bet with your friends, like I'm gonna beat you, and if you win, they have to go buy you a lightsaber or something. Everything he said, amazing pod race, Darth Hurricane, Michael, great job. I see you're rocking the shirt, our general shirt. Thank you for all your support. Fantastic answer. I want to go on that ride now, so we gotta contact some people, I guess. But awesome, man. Thank you.
James, what'd you think?
No, I think this could be a legitimate ride. I have a couple tweaks to how you put it together, because my thought would be like, because I love the idea of being enclosed in the pod, because you could do fans and you could do motion, you know, how they
like
normally
Avatar.
do. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
Ish.
no, I mean like more like what Star Tours. Like,
yes,
but with like a single person like enclosed in one space, right? So you could do wind and stuff within the thing, and all of it can be custom to what you're doing. So like if you push up the throttle, they could push the wind on you, and it wouldn't have to happen to everybody. But everybody, you know, you'd have like 12 racers in 12 different pods, and then each one of those could probably even be lined up on a track that can move really fast forward and then slowly like back, so that you probably wouldn't feel it. But every time you accelerate, it could push you a few feet forward, and you'd actually legitimately feel that. And it could even drop you as well if you happen to go up and down on something, and you would feel those in real time. Where I think it would be cool then is to have on when you exit the ride, you have your room where they have all the screens like a sports bar, where you can watch the races happen every
That's
new
cool,
round
yeah.
of people.
That'd be cool.
And that's where you can have your betting and stuff, and you can watch your family members after the fact or something like that. Like maybe you can do the race, and then when you walk out, what's playing on the bar is the race that you just did.
right.
So if you just walk into the shop, it doesn't really matter whether it was like 10 minutes ago or not. But for everybody exiting the ride, they can hang out in the gift shop and watch their race again and cheer. No, this is when I passed you. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and stuff like that.
Right.
So they can kind of relive that moment from the other perspective, and then also continue to watch other races of random people that they don't know and see their excitement when they go through the same event. I think this is a crazy idea. Disney, if you're listening. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, it's a good pitch, and I love the ride.
Awesome. Darth Hurricane,
job.
great answer. I don't think I have anything to add, only because these guys kind of covered everything. I think it would be really, really fun. I'm just like super psyched to go to Disney soon. Like in less than a year, I'm going to be in Disney, and I'm just so excited. It's been so long since I've been and I haven't even seen Galaxy's Edge yet. Like that's the biggest joke running right now is that John and I have not been.
Twice.
John and I have not been yet, and it's one of those things that like I feel like it's the constant question that I get from people. They're like, "Oh, you love Star Wars? Have you been to Galaxy's Edge?" And I'm like, "Stop!"
Yeah. So what do you
rubbing it
think
in."
of Galaxy's Edge?
Oh
Yeah,
All
my
my
gosh.
friends who are casual fans have gone. I'm just like,
Yeah.
ugh.
John's got friends that wear their shirts, our shirts there, and
Yeah.
yet he hasn't been.
Right.
Anyway, thank you so much for your support. It means a lot. But yeah, we're gonna head over to John to do Will of the Force. John.
All right. Cheer it. Where are you, baby?
I fear nothing, for all this, as the Force wills it.
There he is. Will the Force. It is here. We're doing all Patreon submissions. 3 questions. Basically how it goes. If you're new to the pod, will this happen? Won't it happen? We give our takes and have some fun. So here we go. The first one is coming from Star Wars Santa on Patreon. Thank you, Santa. Santa! Will we get at least one episode of The Mandalorian Season 3 in 2022? I think we kind of gave some guesses on this earlier in this episode, but Lacey, what do you think? Is Mando back this year?
Yes, I think we're going to get it by the end of the year. At least one episode. Absolutely.
Nice. James?
That's going to be a no from me, John.
Wow.
Wow. Interesting. I'm
Even with the
going
Marvel
yes.
model where they're doing a show like every...
Yeah, that's Marvel. This is Lucasfilm.
All right.
I'm actually really surprised that in a calendar year we're going to get Book of Boba Fett and Andor and Obi-Wan. I feel like you're really pushing your luck to say also Mandalorian as well. I normally describe it to casual fans like, what's the whole Disney show thing? I usually say, if we're lucky, we'll get Mandalorian, but I kind of see that as like early to 2023 kind of thing.
I think we will. I think we're getting Mando, and I think we'll get most of season 3 this year. All right, next one we have, and thank you, Santa, if that's your real name. Jackie Cobb via Patreon. Thank you for the support, Jackie. Will Book of Boba Fett ever be able to top a reveal like the Mandalorian had with Grogu and then Luke? If so, what would the reveal have to be to match it? I'll just go quick. I don't think they'll be able to top it. So that's my will the Force answer there. What would it have to be? Like them doing that same thing but with Han Solo or Leia or something like that. Or Obi-Wan, like a Spirit of Obi-Wan, or Yoda, like the real Yoda. That'd be it for me. James?
I'm going to go with I don't think they can top it because they've already covered like the two possibilities of like probably, you know, the main character of the original trilogy showing up in like young form, like being the hero. Like that's huge. And then the complete opposite of that, which is like a character nobody knew and it became a cultural icon. Like I don't know how you beat either one of those things. If it was my guess quickly, like maybe like Vader or the Emperor showing up and pulling another Rogue One moment where people are just like, that was freaking the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Oh, in a flashback, you mean?
Yeah, like somehow like doing something that where it's like we get to see either one of those characters owning people, you know, like doing the coolest thing they've probably ever done on screen in live action ever, you know?
Okay.
Like that's the only way I can think to do it. But you're right. It's just I already feel like Luke and Grogu have covered this.
All right, Gillerin.
I don't think they can because Luke Skywalker is the Luke Skywalker. And like James said, Grogu was such an impact on pop culture that everybody that isn't even a Star Wars fan has Grogu shirts now. Like everybody has something Grogu related in their house, whether they like Star Wars or not. And they're still making stuff. I can tell you, I have so many baby clothes that came out this past year with Grogu on them. If so, what would match that? I would have to say Han Solo. If we're going back to our early discussion of, you know, these diehard fans from early original trilogy screenings, if you weren't a Boba Fett fan, you were a Han Solo fan. And they pitched this as the biggest rivalry ever and all their marketing and on clothing and merchandise and stuff. So I just feel like Han Solo would be the thing that, like, if you're not a Boba Fett fan, you're a Han Solo fan. And there are a lot of Han Solo fans.
Like, were you about to see the Millennium Falcon, Chewie, and Han in the freaking Book of Boba Fett? Imagine that. Crazy.
That would be bananas.
Will the Force question quickly. Since they did Mandalorian and Luke and now Han Solo and Boba, well, they're not doing that, but I'm saying if they did that, if he showed up here, what would be the show where Leia would show up? Like the Disney Plus show where she makes a surprise cameo and it kind of makes sense.
The end of Rogue One.
No, not John.
Oh,
you think
Cassian.
Ahsoka?
Cassian.
You mean Andor?
Yeah, Cassian Andor. Yes, that show.
Yeah. You're saying that show. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense, actually.
I don't even know. You got me there. Yeah.
I was just thinking like if they had like a side character or something like that. Like, well, maybe
does
if
Obi-Wan
they did the
count if we see
show?
young Leia and Obi-Wan?
No, because I think that's like a recast. Like I'm talking about this like CG, like, and we already saw it, so maybe they would pull away from it. But I was just thinking, yeah, go ahead. What's the next question?
Don't come at me when you see Steve Buscemi showing up as Princess Leia in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. That's all I'm gonna say.
I was watching Wedding Singer the other
rebels.
night. Wedding Singer the other night with him, where he's like super drunk. He's like, "Yo, whatever, Dad."
When he's like, Ooh, I like her.
Yeah.
So funny. Oh, man. All right, last one. Carol Cantwell. What is up, Carol? Thanks for all the support. Will we get any new show announcements, not counting what's previously been publicized? So brand new first-time announcements at Celebration, and if so, will it be movies, Disney Plus live action, or animation? I'm going to say we're getting everything. I feel like they know it's been... Oh, I shouldn't go first, though. Lacey...
You already went. You just went.
Yeah,
You can't
I
just
just
say.
So finish your thought. Will of the Force. James, all right, what do you think? I'm saying everything. We're getting everything.
Let Lacey go first on this one. So you
All right,
and
Lacey,
then
go.
Lacey, Celebration expert.
Just everything. I was going to say the same thing. It doesn't matter.
You were
Everything.
going to say the same?
I feel like
Yeah.
we're all going to say that. Maybe James will.
No, I'm not.
James never says everything. James is the guy that sets the proper expectations, whereas
Says
I go
nothing.
in
Yeah.
like, we're getting everything. They love us. They're giving us everything we
Yeah.
ever wanted. And James is like, Lacey, let's be realistic.
I mean, realistic, you might know better than I do, but like, does Disney have a history of announcing new movies and new
Yes.
TV shows
Yes.
at Celebration?
Yes.
Like in recent, like post Disney? Really?
They announced
The only
Rogue
one I
One
can
there. They announced did they announce Boba Fett or something about Boba Fett? They announced Solo.
No,
They
definitely
announced
not Boba
who's
Fett.
playing Han Solo.
The Return of the Clone Wars. At
Well,
San
yeah,
Diego.
but who's
Clone
playing Han
Wars.
Solo and stuff is not the announcement of that they're making
James,
a Solo movie.
will they or won't they?
So my answer is no movie, no Disney live action, but yes, Disney Plus animation. I think you will get a new animated show announced at Celebration.
All right.
The
and
only tricky
maybe
thing is D23 in
that's
September.
the Tale of the Jedi thing. I don't know,
Oh yeah. True.
Hmm.
but
Interesting.
I don't think live action content at all. I think we'll get updates on what they already have, but no new announcement for
All right.
live action.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Carol. Thanks, Jackie. Thanks, Santa. Thanks, everyone, for submitting those. Try to get a rotation to get everybody involved. So we appreciate all of our patrons, tier 2 and up, submitting those for Will of the Force. And I hope you guys have been enjoying Will of the Force on the Monday show. But that brings us to the end of the show. So I want to thank everybody for listening, watching, being a part of TRB. In addition to subscribing and giving us our ratings, we're only, as of this moment, we are 11 Spotify ratings from 200 already. So thank you, everybody who has been rating us over there. I appreciate that. And we just started charting again in some countries on Apple. So we appreciate everyone who's been finding us and listening and spreading the word. It's been amazing. So thank you so much. In addition to that, make sure you're also going to StarWarsNewsNet.com every day for all of your Star Wars news, reviews, editorials, information, and more. You can find me on Twitter at Johnny Hoey, Star Wars Newsnet, and my movie podcast, Just Like the Movies, where we just recently did an episode on Austin Powers, the original Austin Powers. James, how about you?
You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Myra Trunks and the Taco Bell fast food line, drive-through line crying. Just 'cause I didn't get any chicken wings.
Where they know him as Chicken Wing James.
Yeah, where they know me as guy who missed out.
If you know how to get wings from Taco Bell, please send them to James Baney. Lacey.
People can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Lacey Gillerin, and also make sure to check out every Wednesday when one of us does the Mandalorian Minute. I did the one for this past week.
I think it's me.
And
this next coming
yep,
one.
it might
or
be
John, maybe.
It might be John. It's either John or James for the next one. But
Yeah, me
definitely
and John
check
are kinda flipping.
be?
definitely check it out. You know, we get up, we watch the episode, and we give you our immediate reaction. It's not like a live reaction. It's more like, hey, this is what our initial thoughts are before we give you our full review the night with the live stream for the Mando fan show. So definitely check that out. I had a fun time reacting to the Rancor, so that's all that matters.
Very cool. And we'll see what happens with that this Wednesday.
My baby boy
will,
Rancor.
which will be right.
We're bringing it back. Baby boy's back.
They got to name him. We got to see what the name for that one is. But
Grogu 2.
Grow
but yeah, Mando Fan Show Wednesday live, 9 p.m. East. Join us. But thanks to everybody who's been checking in with that as well. But for now, we're all set here from TRB. We'll be back, of course, next week with a full episode of TRB. But don't forget to check that Mando Fan Show. But until next time, as always, we will see you around, kids.
Cool.
All right, we don't...